Yeah, get the snaps in. Hey, welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 71 for Wednesday, November 9th, 2016. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm joined in the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Podcast studio with himself, Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherman. What's up, dude?
It's getting dark as hell lately. You notice that?
Oh, man, I'm getting tired at like 6.
What is that? So the thing is, like, every day goes by, you give back 6 minutes until you get to winter solstice. But then with daylight savings time, we just give them like 10 days.
Yeah, right?
Worth of darkness.
So it's
like, you know, you look out your window after you think, okay, it's 4 o'clock, I'm going to wind down. And then you look outside, it's dark.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. What's going on?
I don't know about that.
I turned to the clock the other day. I said, boy, it's about time. I'm ready to start getting ready for bed, take my shower and stuff. 8:30.
Yeah.
Well, I ain't like that yet.
It's like, well, I think I'll grab a beer. Oh, it's dark. Maybe I'll have a whiskey.
It's dark. Well, that is one thing in the wintertime. It's whiskey time at 6 p.m.
Hey, that's why I always go to bed earlier in the wintertime. I'll tell you what.
Speaking of, what you drinking today?
Well, I got a nice long neck Miller Lite here. But I think we're going to get into some, what we got? Buffalo Trace Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey.
That stuff is
Yeah,
good.
we kind of got a little bit of ice.
Yep, a little bit of ice.
It'd be good.
We popped it open earlier before even the pre-show and took a couple sips from the bottle. And, man, that stuff's good. I forget every time how good it is until I have it again.
Yeah, it is.
Dang, that's good.
It's probably the highest value bourbon on the shelf right now, in all honesty. Taste versus cost ratio, for sure.
So we do our pumpkin carving party every year, right? Over here at the PETM podcast studio, also known as my house. And people bring over all kinds of beer and stuff. And I mean, we provide plenty of beer, but people like to bring their own stuff. So I just kind of went into the fridge and grabbed some stuff, just trying to clear out the fridge, you know. And I didn't know they made this Michelob Ultra Light Cider, naturally gluten-free. 4% alcohol by volume.
Of course it is.
This stuff is gross, dude. It's terrible.
Let me try it.
Oh, I've been drinking on it for an hour probably. It's probably warm as hell, and it's not good.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
That tastes like something we used to buy in college, you know, when like it would go on sale, and you're like, well, it's really cheap.
It's $6 a case.
Yeah, it's $6 a case, so maybe we should give this a shot.
Yeah, it's...
yeah, you need to finish that up.
Yeah, I'm not saying...
You got a whole nother one. We may have to Cannonball, come on.
That could be. That'd be
way
done.
better if it's cold.
Yeah, it is cold. I just brought it out of the fridge. Anyway, so...
like Arbor Mist is what that tastes like.
I don't recommend the Michelob Ultra Light Cider. I don't know which one of my friends brought it over, but I don't think we're friends anymore. That's all I'm saying.
I know we're not. But I'm the outlier, so it's all good.
So, episode number 71. Every time I say a bigger number, something about the 70s sounds like legit. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not only legit, but as we've come to discover, getting deep into this by the numbers thing, these numbers that aren't really associated with Cup fans and like historically awesome Cup drivers end up being some of the better stories because you get some names to pop up. You're like, hey, I've heard of that guy. Oh, he drove 71. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, how cool. So, I'm going to be talking for a little while here because I found a couple.
Chatter it on up.
Here it is. Number one, Dave Marcus. 589 races in the number 71. 5 wins across 5 decades. I'm telling you, son.
I've not been alive 5 decades. I think I'm 4.
You're into 4, yeah. Like
and that's living,
80s,
not
90s,
racing a race car.
Aughts and 10s,
80s,
yeah.
90s, aughts, and 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So
4 decades.
4 decades of living.
Just being alive.
Not driving in a national touring series. He ran the Daytona 500 from 1968 to 1999. Every one of them. How about that?
That's bullspit.
It's a number that can't be true. He drove for a top-tier team for a little bit, then started his own team after he departed Osterlund Racing. And I didn't know this, but after he departed Osterlund Racing, they picked up a rookie by the name of Dale Earnhardt.
I knew Osterlund, so I knew it was going to come next.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I forgot that. I think I had done a little bit of research at one point when we were... I don't know what the reason was. We were doing some kind of historical thing maybe related to Dale Earnhardt that Marcus had been in that car before Dale. Ricky Rudd also raced with Osterlin around that same time period. But that's really cool. I mean, we're talking about like big time names. We're kicking up dust and like we're finding rocks, like gold rocks.
Yeah, and the interconnectivity between all these folks is really neat to find stuff like that. The other thing is he wore wingtip dress shoes, like brown, nice dress shoes, every race to absorb heat. He said, "Who knows? What it was? I think it became his thing after a while."
I remembered guys like Junior Johnson and Darrell Waltrip way back in his early days talking about they would race in like penny loafers or like dress type shoes because the leather would actually offer them more protection than any of the athletic shoes at the time in terms of dissipating heat.
Or like cotton and rubber, just about it.
Yeah, well, cotton and like foam rubber it was not a very good heat dissipator.
Right. So he's Dave Marcus. He's 75 years old, so cheers, Dave Marcus. Hats off.
Lifted. Beers up.
Yep, drinks up. There we go. I'm only halfway done. We got to talk about
another person.
Listen to this guy, Bobby Isaac. We know Bobby. I mean,
everybody's heard of Bobby Isaac. Why have we heard of Bobby Isaac?
Why have we heard of him?
I think because he's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
That's exactly right. So old Rusty here tweeted out a picture of his number 71 car, a Dodge Charger Daytona that is a beautiful
that car is awesome
and it's sitting. That's the one that's sitting in the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
So go figure.
Yep. So if you want to see that one, either go just Google it or go check out PETM Podcast on the old Twitter handle. I think Sherwin retweeted it from the PETM Podcast Twitter, so you can see it there. But let me just throw numbers at you because this is just fun to start thinking about. 198 races in the 71. So remember that number, almost 200 races in the 71, and he had 35 wins, which is insane.
That's pretty good.
37 total wins throughout his career. 50 poles. That means a quarter of the races that he raced in, he won the pole. That's like Ryan Newman in the early or in the mid-aughts for his entire career.
2 or 3 years, yeah, like for an entire career.
Right. 170 top 10s. Now, you remember what I said? 198 races, 170 top 10s. Holy cow.
I'm impressed by that.
Yep.
That's like, when they showed up that's like, those numbers are probably better than David Pearson's in a lot of ways, but those are David Pearson, Wood Brother type numbers. Like, we're going to run about 25 of the 60 races, but we're going to win 23 of them and get 24 top fives.
He also holds 28 land speed records at Bonneville Salt Flats. Some of those are still standing today.
Depending on what the vehicular is.
Yeah. So, incredible job, Bobby Isaac. Here's how he retired. He was in the middle of the Talladega race, and he pretty much, in 1973, and he said, you know what? I'm done. He pulled in the pit lane, got out of his car, and retired.
F it, Daddy.
I'm talking about, yep, I'm done. I got nothing, and he said, I got nothing left to prove. I'm done. He did race in the next 3 years on a very limited schedule, but that was pretty much his retirement, was the 73 Talladega race. I would love to go back and see if there's like any sort of footage, whether it be radio or whatever television was available, and see if anybody was talking about the race going, and Bobby Isaac is pulled out of the race, and he quit.
He's done.
He's done. End. Wow.
I'm out of here.
Unfortunately, we lost Bobby Isaac back in 1977, 5 years before I was even born. He pulled out of the Winston 200 late model race at Hickory. It was like a 91-degree day or something. He collapsed and ended up dying of a heart attack later on that day. So, Bobby Isaac raising the glass to him.
Golly.
Hats off and raising the glass there. So one stat that I skipped, I love this number stuff, and if y'all hate me for it, tweet at me, and I'm just going to keep doing it anyway because I'm just having fun.
Right, this is our show.
But Dave Marcus, I forgot to mention the first guy that we talked about, Dave Marcus. He ran 883 races in his career. He retired second behind the King himself in 2002 in terms of total number of races started. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, that is impressive.
And just to round it out, I'm not going to talk about him any more than this line. Buddy Baker drove the 71, and he had 3 wins in it. So,
hell yeah,
how about
did.
That, huh?
Buddy Baker.
How about that? What was the other car that we had where all I did was just list all the names of people who've driven?
Oh, we had a roll call episode.
Yeah.
Was that like the 66 maybe?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then this one feels like like a legend roll call here between Dave Marcus, Bobby Isaac, and Buddy Baker.
Yeah, list of legends.
Right? So we've got end of season for the PETM Podcast 24K car driven by Mr. Kenny Smith out there in Lee County, Iowa. And so wanted to give a final update on him here. We've been so proud, man. How fun has it been following along Kenny all year, picking up at the beginning of the season, doing the sponsorship deal, and then, following him throughout the whole thing, giving the updates, and seeing how he's doing with the top 10 machine he's got out there.
Well, it's certainly been a lot of fun following along and, of course, getting to engage a little bit deeper with the sponsorship. It's been a lot of fun. I never imagined it would be that fun. That's why I've encouraged anybody in the arena of listening to podcasts and involved with racing to do something like that, because I don't think you'll understand what you've got yourself into in terms of exposure and just enjoyment until you do something like that.
And I mean, you have a vested interest. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but you develop this relationship you otherwise would not have, and that's what's really cool about racing is we've developed a ton of relationships through that little camera over there and through this microphone that we otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to do, and that's been a lot of fun, and that's why we keep on doing it. Yeah.
So Kenny Smith, throughout October, there was a weekend Lee County Speedway. He got 12th and 8th with 26 cars. So listen to the number of cars that are running these races, too. 26 cars and 20 cars, and he's running top half on that and getting that top 10 machine. Speaking of top 10 machine, Memphis, Missouri, 6th and 7th places the following weekend. And then in the last weekend, the Halloween weekend, back at Lee County, 32 cars on the track, and he finished 12th. What can we say other than it's been a joyride for sure? And I know we'll be talking to Kenny plenty more. Wish him the best. I know he's going through some stuff right now, but man, Kenny, it's been a pleasure and it's been awesome. And this ain't the end of nothing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it enough that we're definitely, looking forward to what the future is.
Absolutely,
certainly.
Well, dude, should we talk about NASCAR? I think this is the second episode in a row I've asked that.
What
are we doing here? I don't know. Let's tear it down. So, actually, before we tear it down, I just finished that one. Let me. We're going to cannonball this right here.
Okay, we're cannonball on the show.
On the show,
yeah, we're doing it. I mean, it's going to get real.
So, I'll start. I'll lead with a sort of question. You answer for the next 5 seconds or so, and then I'll pass you the bottle. All right?
Okay, cool.
We went to Texas, and there was rain. How many shortened races have we had this year?
Shortened races, I don't know. I want to say maybe 3 or 4. But in terms of rain-impacted weekends, I want to say 7 or 8. It felt ridiculous.
Well,
you go.
Yep, and we've talked about it before on the podcast. How much money has even the PETM podcast spent on races that have gone in the rain? And I think the answer is 3 of them that we've done. Probably $500 or more of races going on. Well done. Oh, that didn't take too long. It's nice and cold.
Cannonball coming.
Yes, sir.
Cannonball done.
Cannonball done.
Oh, we're way north of $500, by the
way. yeah, I know that. A piece, I guess I should say, because I was thinking about my own wallet here. But the thing with the rain, the other thing that sucks a lot is you get all amped up for the race, right? All right, we got the race coming on. It's going to be done by like 5 or 6 p.m. I've got people coming over for dinner. And we'll be able to eat at 7, and then I'll be able to get to bed by this time, and I got an early meeting tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. When it gets rained out and we'll talk about it for a minute, but for 4 or 5 hours, I mean, it just wrecks the whole deal, So you got nothing to do, so you're kind of watching football, and for me and you, we'd already seen our Falcons play.
Yeah, we played on
Thursday night. So I'm just kind of sitting around watching whatever football's on and waiting on the track to dry and waiting on food to cook, and then once food's cooked, shoot, I got stuff to do, so I'm kind of only half watching, and it felt weird to only really half watch that race. And then in the end, it gets rained out at the end too, so rain on both ends, and Carl Edwards takes it. But what's the deal with taking 4 or 5 hours to dry a track?
Well, I think this one's particularly unique, and it's 2 reasons. As I probably mentioned in the notes, it's both climate/weather related and surface related.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So the thing about Texas, everybody, what we're going to hear about going forward is Texas going to repave because, oh my gosh, that's the reason why it took so long to dry, blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, that's a piece of it. It is very porous, which means water has a lot of places to hide. You know, we've dealt with weepers at Texas before, and we know how much that sucks. But the other piece of the puzzle was Dallas-Fort Worth was cold. I mean, relatively speaking. It was 61 or 62 degrees around the time they wanted to dry.
Yep.
Well, guess what? The dew point was like 58 or 59 degrees.
Yep. And closing in.
Which means you're basically, and you had that pressure situation too. So you had basically 100% humidity.
Yep.
Which means that not only do you have to blow all the standing water off the track, that's where the porous part came in, that in order to actually get the surface dry, you had to input a tremendous amount of entropy.
Right, you have to
entropy, energy.
Yeah.
Got a little too nerdy there.
You have to force evaporate.
You have to force evaporate the water that's there, based on the energy that you can create with both moving vehicles, engines, and jet dryers. And you know what? I'll say this: whoever Bob Pockers was talking to at 3:00 Central Time that said we're looking at 3.5 to 4 hours to dry. Mm-hmm. That person probably knows evaporation science very well.
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
They nailed it.
Nailed it is right. Hashtag nailed it.
And that's when I said, so you mean we're not going to race until 7:30 Eastern? And it's like, that's what you need to prepare for. And so that's what I did. Mm-hmm. And when we go green, 7:16 or something?
Yep. So, props on that, at least on them knowing. It's a shame that we had to end it. This is something we talk about often. Eventually it's going to happen. We always say, what if XYZ happens at Homestead? And here, throw this one on there on the pile. What if weather happens at Homestead and we're having to call a race 40 laps short? I mean,
do you want somebody? Okay, so I don't think anybody was super upset with Carl Edwards doing pit strategy to get where he got.
No.
What if that is what wins the championship at Homestead?
Right.
And that's what you were leading into.
Well, exactly. And we're talking about Game 7 moment stuff. What's the most recent Game 7 we had? Obviously, Cub stuff. But hey, they had 17 minutes of rain. Then they're back on the field, and that almost gave it an air of like, why not have 17 minutes of rain in this series? We've already had a 3-1 lead that's been blown. We've already had, we're tie ball game at this point, extra innings, everything. Why not have some rain as well? And then, that just added to it. Whereas if you get rain in NASCAR in the quote-unquote Game 7 coming up, that could be disastrous.
It could be disastrous in a lot of ways. I think the last thing you want to do is leave the majority of the people that watched on television and the majority of the people that were in the stands with a bad taste in their mouths. Mm-hmm. So, we're getting a little commentary on Periscope there saying that, not too happy about what I said about Carl Edwards and strategy. Look, if it went back green, he's not going to win that race. But It's fine, though, because, it was Texas and not Homestead. That's all we're saying.
Right. Yeah, that's the point there. So I hope that there's no contingency plan you can have, right? If it rains at the track, you've got to dry off the track. I don't think it's going to take them 3.5 hours at Homestead to dry it off because, number one, it's warm there usually. Although me and you've been to Miami when it was freezing cold in January.
I'm pretty sure we attended the coldest Orange Bowl on record.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of our luck. I mean, that's
right. If
you're going to a sporting event, you just better make sure we're not going.
Right. We'll bring the weather with us.
Yeah, and that's what we told Carlton. I'm glad you decided to go to Talladega when we decided we weren't.
Right.
Because you're going to have better luck with it than we do.
So Carl punches a ticket, and it creates quite an eventuality here. Joey and Kyle Busch are at +1 on the bubble. Kenseth -1 on the bubble. I mean, they're all essentially tied.
We got 4 guys right there altogether.
And Hamlin right there at -2, essentially tied.
Yeah, well, one of the things I really like to see, or I'm glad I saw on one of the weekly shows this week, I'm sure it was the NASCAR and NBC show, was them talking about how Denny Hamlin, despite things we'll get into maybe later, he had led laps, had stayed out and led laps. And those 2 points now looks like really important.
Right.
Like really important.
Right.
Because, +2 versus +4 seems like a big difference or a minus or however we're calling it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Phoenix becomes obviously huge anyway, but it's not like there's one guy on the bubble or there's whatever. There's 4 guys there. Really chase for
4 guys
spots.
within 3 points.
And we'll get to it in a bit.
And there's 2 spots.
And 2 other guys who are not really within points, but who can totally win at this track. We'll get to it in a minute.
Well, it's 2 drivers that can totally win and 2 teams that can totally win.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But in the meantime, what happened with Harvick and Austin Dillon? What's that whole story? This was fun.
Exactly how we're going to deal with this.
Uh-huh.
So, admittedly, I was manning the probably the podcast handle on the old Twitter deck when this discussion came up, and there was a lot of people that were really passionate. And that's the thing about fans is they're always passionate because fan is short for fanatic. I think we a lot of times forget that.
Mm-hmm.
And all I was trying to say was that I don't think Kevin Harvick intentionally wrecked Austin Dillon. What I do know is that Kevin Harvick did not have to put his car where he did.
Right.
Which means that he went out of his way to make it difficult for Austin to complete the pass in the fashion that he wanted to complete it. And so when what we've seen happen all year long happened, Austin ends up in the wall. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Kevin Harvick wrecked Austin Dillon. I'm not saying Austin Dillon pushed a bad position. I'm saying it was a racing deal, and it just happened to come late in the year and just happened to be between them 2 guys that have had some contention in the past.
Right.
And not so much even Austin and Kevin. It was actually Austin and Ty where the old silver spoon comment came up. But it carried over because the brothers are very tied together in terms of loyalty and loyalty to Pop.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
I think both of them will say that it's a racing deal, but neither one of them wanted it to be that guy. I don't know.
Harvick. So if you watch Harvick's interview afterwards, and the Harvick people are they're gonna crucify me over this. Harvick was so unprepared to try to speak nicely and like. I didn't do it kind of thing in the interview. Like, he tripped through the entire interview, even though it was the 30-second interview. And Austin chose to take the grandstanding approach of, I'm going to bring back the old thing. I'm going to get mad. My crew chief's in my ear saying, write that number down. We're going to Phoenix. He's going to have to win. We're not. And Kevin's the crew chief says a lot of things he probably shouldn't say. And that was actually very funny.
Yeah.
And the whole situation is entertaining to us because, what if Harvick has a chance to win and Austin takes him out? Then we're going to have the same conversation we did about Kenseth and Joey under a little bit different circumstances where we get really mad about the person that took the guy out. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. People are going to be mad one way or another if those 2 get involved on the racetrack outside of just, let's race. Yeah. I would suspect that Harvick's going to be fast enough it's not going to matter.
I would suspect so, too, and I don't see Austin Dillon taking Harvick out of the lead, but if it's like late in the race and he takes him out of 10th or something, if Harvick's just running top 10 and maybe not right up there at the front, I could see that happening.
Well, so let's put it this way: I haven't had a whole lot of Austin Dillon fans really get after me on in any space. So I'll just go ahead and I'll attack Austin Dillon just a little bit. He spun earlier in the race because he tried to chop David Ragan in the 23 Burger King Dr. Pepper car.
Yep.
Ragan didn't lift. And so Austin went for a spin.
Yep.
Or a long slide, we should say.
Yeah.
Definitely put him behind. And so I don't know what the consensus was because I was reading trying to figure out, okay, did Austin screw up or did David screw up?
Yep.
David was a lap-down car. I've been very vocal about my opinion about lap-down cars getting in the way of lead-lap cars. I'm very torn on this as I look forward and see this second incident happened where the only way he could have taken the position from Harvick was to slide up in front of him. So it makes it a little bit more convoluted. Like, I can't just totally look at Dave Ring and go, no, dude, that's not okay. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't, we don't know if maybe the last 20 laps They both race each other like buttholes.
Right.
What we do know is
racing back there with the buttholes.
Don't race with the buttholes.
Right. Don't race back with buttholes.
So, I mean, that's a rule of the PETM podcast is if you want to finish well, don't race with the buttholes.
Right.
And you know what's really cool is the buttholes mostly have spotters that will get them out of the way if you don't race them like a butthole.
Right. If you're not reciprocating.
If you pull up on the bumper, guy doesn't move, call your spotter says, yep, I got him. Hey, Joey, what do you got? And then turn one, the guy lifts, around you go.
Yeah. Reciprocating buttholes. That's only on the PETM podcast. Stick with us, y'all.
Hey, man.
Hey, so I was pretty excited. Kyle Busch, who I picked, finished top 5. I got a top 5 out of it. I'm like, yes, all right. Working well. And old Sure Daddy here comes back with a top 4 on me with Chase Elliott. So well done on that one.
We had a good week.
Well done on that.
Both of us.
You know, when we're both top 5, yeah, that's a good week. I like it when one of us picks a winner. There was no way to. Who's going to pick Carl that race, by the way?
Well, nobody, and that's why Jeffrey Whitler's getting mad at us on the whole Periscope because he was only in it to win it, but I mean, yeah, good for him. I mean, well done.
Exactly.
What else you going to do?
Exactly. I'm not trying to diss Carl on that. I'm just saying I would pick 4 or 5 other people before Carl for sure. So
yeah,
that was good on him to take that strategy and everything. Good on the crew chief there. We have a question. From Kyle Larson Updates, our old good buddy at 42_updates. He's saying, what was the reasoning back when behind NASCAR taking away the horsepower about 2 years ago? What's the whole story behind that? I think you had some comments on that.
Well, I don't know how many notes I provided you, but I think I replied back to him, via DM so that we could have this conversation
there's a cost
again.
Thing. There's a
to me, it was all cost.
Yeah,
because NASCAR was absolutely scared to death of 10,000 RPM.
Yep.
And they didn't know what was going to happen with valve springs and push rods and all that stuff in a center cam engine if we got to 10,000 RPM sustained.
Mm-hmm.
And so they felt like they had to pull back to try to keep the RPMs down around, I think 9,300 is what they were targeting way back, in the first non-restricted race, even though we know the reason, the way we got to less horsepower was a restricted, plate, not a restrictor plate per se from the old carbureted days, but this aspirated engine that we have.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So I think that was, to me, that was cost. We already replaced springs and maybe even valves after every practice and every race. I think they get to replace all that stuff. You just can't replace what they call hard parts like drivetrain, pistons, push, rods and stuff like that, oil pans. You can't replace that kind of stuff. That basically constitutes changing an engine.
Mm-hmm.
But they get to replace the springs, I'm pretty sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because that requires you to get deep.
Yeah, well,
a little deep.
Yeah, it's time consuming, and when you talk about what a 4-car team is going to replace, 16 per motor, 4 teams, 64 every time they go back out.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yep. So I think it does bring up maybe even a different or ancillary question of, with less horsepower and stuff, we also have people just running wide open especially at these 1.5-mile. So Texas, you can run wide open for a while. Same thing with Atlanta. We always talked about Atlanta. Always just had that little burp, that just little lift off the gas real quick, back down.
Well, in qualifying for sure, I think what we've seen now with Atlanta is that you get a little bit more, but it's got Atlanta has the widest radius of all the 1.5 miles, and that's what's so cool about Atlanta. The straightaways are a little bit shorter, but I think what we've talked about in the past, and we'll talk about a little bit more now, is that what feels like a fun situation in racing is when the corner entry speed and the minimum corner speed are as wide apart as they can be.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you enter at 190 or if you enter at 120. You want the gap between the fastest speed and the slowest speed to be as high as possible.
Yep.
Because that allows the driver to steer the car.
Yep.
Look at it. Off the gas, he can steer.
Look at the paperclip at Sonoma. I mean, that's one of the more famous places, and where Tony Stewart this year went crazy, you know?
Well, it gives you options,
Yep.
right? What Tony Stewart's option was, I can peg the throttle, and even if it doesn't turn, I can use the 11 as a body block.
Denny. Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and you know what? If you look at Jeff Gluck's, was this a good race? Sonoma is like in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so was Watkins Glen.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And those have big disparities.
Huge disparities between top speed and low speed. Now, road courses are going to generate that naturally. So what we want to see is something more like California, where you go sweeping down the front straight and you enter
Long
the corner at
straightaways
208.
Yeah.
But by the time you finish the corner, get settled, get the car turned and pointed back out, you're 40 or 50 miles an hour slower than you entered.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you have had an opportunity for aero to not matter as much and mechanical grip to take over, and you can choose a line that you like.
Yeah.
Like, when do you want to get on the gas?
But then again, in Atlanta, watching them run high line into 1 and 2, diving down in 3 and 4.
But it's the same thing.
Is it with as great a disparity as speed, I guess?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in. I love it. So, yeah.
But Texas didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Texas, and as you were saying, in the first 10 to 15 laps, they were only running 20-mile-an-hour difference between corner entry and center corner.
Yep.
Because, the way the car is today, even though it's supposed to be a quote-unquote rough surface, they're not slowing down enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we see the leader get away and get gone.
Go bye-bye. Xfinity. Let's move on there. Tearing it down in Xfinity. No chasers winning the first 2 races. The taste in my mouth. I'm getting where people are coming from.
I'm fine with it because I already know what the solution is, and they've already instituted it for next year.
Yep. So I get
no
where folks
reason
are
to
coming
bitch
from.
about it this year.
So
it's
at this
fixed
point,
for next year.
We know what's going on. Everybody, you wrote the note. Everybody's racing for points. I like the way you put that. And I kind of lowered my head and shook it a little bit. And, oh, man.
Digging, man.
I love it. You're poking there. Everybody, all the Xfinity guys racing for points. And it's the truth. So, like you said, though, they fixed it. So what's the point of bitching about it? Because, they fixed it. But we just got to wait for it to happen. But, another good data point for them to say, okay, we fixed it. At least we fixed it the right way. At this point.
Yeah, it's fixed.
But yeah, 6 guys. You wrote that down
got
too.
6 guys shooting for 4 spots or 3 spots. It's going to be awesome. 4 spots. Excuse me.
4 spots. Yep, 6 guys for 4 spots. So
top 4 are like Elliott, Suarez. I won't anymore, but Allgaier is just on the outside. That's another JRM car. And there's a couple of Reed from Roush. He's got a shot mathematically. There's legit 6 cars with a shot at the 4 spots.
It's going to be fun to watch. And trucks, we talked about trucks last week with Johnny Sauter in after the Martinsville win. We got 4.
Phoenix is crazy because it's so flat,
mm-hmm.
but it's really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So typically you're going to see a veteran driver is going to have an advantage there.
Yep.
Sauter, hell, I don't know. He's probably just going to cruise around, I would think. Although there was a funny thing brought up about how, since Spencer Gallagher won that race, at Texas, that would they change chassis since he's not in the chase and Sauter is. So I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that because if Sauter had a good enough chassis to win at Martinsville, I'd take that same chassis to Phoenix. It's a very similar structured track.
Definitely.
It's a little faster, but it's definitely similarly flat.
Well, since we're already on Phoenix, let's just go ahead and gas it up.
Boom.
Boom. There it is. Gassing it up for Phoenix, dude. Rattlesnake Hill. That's all I want to talk about.
Yeah. So
how soon are we going to go to that?
Right. As part of our bucket list, and I've probably imposed my will on Rusty on this is when we go, I want to see the track from 3 different angles. I want to watch it. So I want to go in the fall. I want to watch a truck race from Rattlesnake Hill, and I want to watch the Xfinity race from like turn 4, and I want to watch the Cup race from turn 1 or turn 2, one or the other. And So I get really excited when we go to Phoenix in the fall. It just feels like really fun, good racing.
Yeah, it does. And you may have forced it upon me on where to sit, but there was total agreement and thinking on the same page in terms of going to Phoenix, because I mean that's just too cool.
Well, yeah. Well, and certainly we'd have to go out there and maybe play some golf too.
Mm-hmm. At the place, or go watch some golf. Yeah, well, if we went in the spring.
I mean, it'd be awful nice if Georgia Tech would schedule a football game against Arizona State like on November 9th of 2018 or something like
kidding,
that.
Right?
That would work out really well.
Well, we've already talked about it. We've got 2 spots left. 4 guys: Joey, Kyle, Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin, all right there on the bubble. Harvick and Kurt Busch kind of outside the bubble range right now, but I mean, I think the big story is Harvick's a beast at Phoenix, man.
5 of the last 6.
Holy crap! Not only 5
of the last 6,
but he's how many out of the last how many for making it into the next round with a win that he's needed?
Yeah. So we had that whole thing when he was with RCR that he was the closer. Mm-hmm. And he went to SHR and he started finishing second like 78 times a year and still winning like 4 or 5 races. Mm-hmm. But, he's going to be the clutch. We're going to call him Mr. Clutch if he wins again. Because if he doesn't win, he's not transferring. Like, there'd have to be a weird set of circumstances. Yeah, it would have to because he's 18 points.
Well, there would have to be 2 guys that crash out and then he's got to finish.
But, I mean, you have to tip your hat if he does go out and win. Like, super
Absolutely.
Tip your hat.
Absolutely. And then that means there's only 2 spots left, so that means Joey, Kyle, Kenseth, or Hamlin, only one of them get in after that.
Right.
So that's going to be a race.
Right. So we have the potential of if Kevin wins, then we know there's only a chance for 2 Gibbs cars.
Mm-hmm.
And even still, Joey could take one of those places, so we only end up with Carl.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this whole other weird set of circumstances where if Joey and Kevin don't have good days, we could see Jimmy versus Joe Gibbs at Homestead.
That's fun. I like that.
I mean, it's an interesting scenario.
I mean, I don't have anything against Gibbs, but I might buy a 48 hat that day.
You know what? Something along those lines.
Just kind of like it. I mean, I know Jimmy's no underdog. Shoot, he's got 6 championships.
79 wins.
Yeah. But, him going up against an entire team is really funny to me. That's just funny.
It's hilarious.
Right?
I mean, it would be awesome for Joe Gibbs, but it would be even awesomer if Jimmy beats like 3 guys from another team.
Holy cow.
And if you go to Homestead, who do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can have all of Joe Gibbs or you can have Jimmy. It's kind of like that pick one guy or the field.
Yeah, one guy or the field.
I'll take Jimmy all day, every day.
About take Jimmy on that. Now,
if Chackenhouse has to win, you got 1 race to win?
He's going to cheat it up somehow. and
yeah, but he's not going to get caught.
Right. That's
Hamlin's going to get 7 speeding penalties and a tire.
I almost made a joke earlier
Kyle's
today.
going to lose his mind and hit the wall. Kenseth is going to
who knows? Kenseth's
have a cheese curd problem.
Yeah, something's going to happen. And the other person we haven't even talked about yet, Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, way too many points behind. I mean, he's almost a race behind.
Well,
he can go up and win this race.
Like the position that he's in because there's no chance for him to transfer on points, which means they absolutely have to win.
Mm-hmm.
I like Kurt Busch in a no-holds-barred situation.
I do too.
Especially considering he's a wheelman.
And I don't think there's any love loss.
And Tony Old Man Gibson is a wheelman.
Yeah. There's no love loss. Like they're not going to. Him and Harvick aren't going to be pushing each other at the end of the race. They're
not going to be holding hands and having a good time this weekend.
Especially after Dega. And all that
there's
stuff.
none of that.
No teammate stuff to worry about there. Who knows what Gibbs will do? They've been front to back in all those races, but very interesting. I don't know what I'm rooting for to happen here. I think I like Jimmy versus Gibbs. It's a weird, crazy situation, but
it certainly would make it easy for me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have to pick very many favorites there. I would just go ahead and root for history.
Right? No kidding. Well, we've got a question, another question. New fella, we haven't talked to him on the tweeter box yet. But Eric Kepner, he says, this question's so easy, I don't even know how to, and I'm not trying to belittle him, but having been to many racetracks, this question is so easy. What's the best racetrack for a first-time fan to attend that would set the hook and convert a new fan? Bristol.
There is just nothing like Bristol anywhere.
Nope.
Anywhere.
And you got to be there to know it.
Well, and this particular question comes from a friend of mine, friend of the podcast, listens weekly, and not necessarily even a NASCAR fan, just loves the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about this a lot, and I tried to put Bristol over here and have the thought about all the other things that we've seen or experienced, and I'm like, there's nothing that can prepare you for what Bristol is until you actually see it.
No.
Television doesn't know justice. You and me talking about it on a podcast does it no justice.
Right.
You will not understand what it means for 40 cars.
I just got goosebumps. There they
to
are.
be doing 150 miles an hour around a half-mile oval in a stadium.
The first thing you do, so I remember my first time at Bristol, and I always will, and I still get this feeling, not to that extreme, but I still, every time I walk in and I chuckle, because I remember that feeling that I had. There's goosebumps again right there.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and the first thought was, holy crap, how huge is this place, in terms of being a stadium. And then second was, holy crap, how small is that track? I said,
yes.
They're fixing to put 43 cars at the time, 43 cars on this track that's as big as like going around a football stadium.
Basically.
It was it's insane when you walk in there. And then you look at the banking. And the banking you just don't get on TV or nothing else.
No, when the car goes by and you're sitting center corner and you can see him in the ear hole because you're
through the passenger window,
you're parallel with him.
Yeah.
And you are, where are our seats? 50, 60 feet off a plane?
Yep.
We're 6 stories in the air. We're 60 feet off of the plane, which if you looked outside, you may be 180 feet, depending on which side of the stadium you are. But we're 60 feet off the plane. The driver, the passenger, if you had a passenger, he's 30 feet off the plane.
Yeah, right?
We're another 30 feet in elevation higher than that. Like, it's crazy.
It's insane. It's insane, and no matter where you sit, because we've sat in several places, we've got our spot now, but we've sat in several different places. You've always got a good seat. You don't have to look up and tilt your head back and forth to figure out where your guy is or anything. And a lot of places like Talladega or something. If I lose where my driver, well, not Talladega because they're all in a big pack or something, but some of the super speedway or mile and a halfers. Say we go to Charlotte, and I'm like, oh crap, where's Casey? Well, I'll just look at the start-finish line until he comes back around. It might be 30 seconds.
Well, and it might take you 2 laps if you got a little bit disoriented.
Uh-huh.
And when you actually decide to look for where am I going to try to find my driver, it might take you a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Where's he at? Oh, his car's real similar to somebody else's. At Bristol, it's like, okay, just pick you a spot where you can see the number in 15 seconds.
Yeah, at the worst. Like he just went by in 15 seconds, you're going to see him again. So, me and you've seen some stuff. We were at Martinsville when Tony threw the helmet thing, right?
No, that was Bristol.
Or was it Bristol? Okay,
yeah,
well,
hell,
then Bristol's even better now.
Yeah.
I thought it was Martinsville.
Yeah, that's when he threw his helmet at Kenseth.
Boy, we cheered like SOBs did.
Yeah, we did.
That was fun. But we've been to Martinsville. We've been out to several mile and a halfers. I just can't imagine. Been to the super speedways. I can't imagine anything better. Maybe the only downside is you're going to be disappointed when you go other places, but they all have something else to offer. And so once you start getting into racing more and more, then you're going to start appreciating those other things too, and then you want to go see that live. But just to see a spectacle, Bristol.
Yeah, for sure a spectacle is Bristol. I think once as a race fan, like Darlington does so much for me. But I don't think it would do as much for a first-time fan.
Darlington does more and more for me more of these old school numbers that we keep reading at the top of the show.
For sure.
How many times have we said, and he did blah, blah, blah at Darlington, right? What was the last fellow who hit the daggum scoring board and it fell onto the track and they had to clean it? You know what I mean?
Man. Like, yeah. I can probably scroll through my notes from last week and find out.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that stuff like that is so cool.
So you go and you see that sort of stuff. There's so much history at Darlington. But yeah, it's Bristol. So without tooting the Bristol horn anymore, let's go straight to
that was Johnny Allen. By the way,
that's right. That's right.
Car number 69.
There's a guy. He's asking us to do some picks. We're doing some picks.
We are doing picks.
It's I was very happy with my top 5, but it was not a top 4. Therefore, Sherwin gets to go first.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's right. I did finish ahead of you. So I really like the go or go home aspect of this thing. So I'm going to pick Kurt Busch.
I'll take Harvick then.
I've done that several times in the chase.
Well,
but I mean, it just feels like a fun thing to root for. Like,
it is.
As soon as they hit the track, I guess not tomorrow, but Friday, I'll be like, wonder how fast Busch is. I wonder how fast Busch is. How fast is Harvick?
Busch. Yep. I mean, that's who you're going to be focusing on is those guys.
Yeah.
And then, somebody's going to mess up. Hamlin's going to speed or something.
He'll speed during practice, and they'll ding him up.
So, you hit my funny bone. Yeah. So yeah, let's take those two. Why not? I mean, I'll take Harvick if you want to take. I'll take either one. If you said Harvick, I was going to take Kurt because I'm my pick for the winner of the entire season is still in the chase as of right now. That's Kyle Busch. So I'm going to hold off on that pick again because I picked him this past week. But I'm going to hold off on that pick until when he makes it to Miami, and that'll be my pick there.
I don't even remember who I picked way back in February.
We'll go back. We'll have to go back and listen to the episode.
We'll have to because leading into next week will be the last shot at it.
Yep. So that rounds out NASCAR. Let's talk about some other sports. Crazy stuff going on. UFC 205 taking a big old hit with Tim Kennedy. There's more goosebumps. I'm just getting goosebumps all over.
Real American hero.
I mean,
he's G.I. Joe.
Yeah, real American.
He's a real American G.I. Joe.
He doesn't just play one on TV.
No. He's a UFC fighter as a hobby, and his real job is Sergeant First Class Army Special Forces.
Holy crap.
He just got back. He flew from somewhere in Africa to New York City with no Wi-Fi and no phone service to find out his fight was canceled.
Wow.
Yesterday at 4:58 p.m.
Wow.
Or maybe it was Monday.
Yeah, and that's a bummer. And that's Rashad Evans. I mean, who's a legend of the sport in his own right.
Very much so. Very much. And he's finally fighting at a weight that made more sense for him because he always was fighting heavy, even though he was having success. Yeah, I mean, it sucks because this is going to be Tim Kennedy's last fight, and Tim Kennedy is such a well-respected dude. Politics aside, no matter what you feel one way or the other, he's just absolute American badass.
American badass,
and
yeah.
I mean, UFC fighter. I think he's 10-4 in the octagon. Undefeated as a soldier. He's a very good friend of a lot of the guys that we respect a lot, like Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen and Joe Rogan and those guys that all have him on his podcast, and there's hunting and stuff. Tim Kennedy does that fly in a helicopter and hunt boars with a machine gun stuff.
Oh man.
That was I think he was the one that invited Joe to do it for the first time. He's like, "That's okay," and he's like, "Yeah." All right, we're doing it.
We can totally do this.
And now Burr's kind of like, "Can we go hog hunting with the thing?"
Bill
and
Burr,
Joe's like, "I will take
California
you hog
man."
hunting.
Well,
we're
originally
in a
Boston,
helicopter, and we're going to just spray lead at the millions of overbred hogs that are out in West Texas.
How awesome is that? And then we're going to go fight somebody and win.
Yeah, and then he's going to go kick somebody's ass in his underwear, as Brendan Schaub says.
Oh, well, I mean, we've made it no qualms about us being U.S. men's national team, U.S. women's national team, U.S. soccer team.
I believe that we will win.
That's right. Versus Mexico this Friday night, dude.
Mexico.
We're going to build a wall and make them pay.
I did not know you were going to do that.
I didn't either. Why did I bring politics into this? I'm sorry.
We do not lose to Mexico on U.S. soil.
No, sir.
And in Columbus, the United States national team kicks ass.
Yes, sir.
And for all the people that are upset about the trucks race getting moved to post 10 p.m. on the East Coast, this is the reason. So gather up a beer, get your best taco going, and watch the U.S. men's national team face Mexico in a World Cup qualifier in Columbus, Ohio, and then you can watch a truck race.
It's going to be awesome. Awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
Excited. Stranger Stang, dude.
Oh, goodness.
Yep. Time to start closing this out. Here we go. She says, in a dodgeball, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. But in a dodgeball tournament, which Cup team pit crew do you think would make it to the final round, and who's going to win the tournament there? And I saw this question early on, and I was like, oh, well, I'll answer that real quick. But then I was like, wait a second. Pump the brakes a little bit. You don't want the biggest, burliest guys out there, the ones that are just slinging 2 tires at a time in one hand.
No, probably not.
Them old big boys, they ain't going to get out of the way, and it's going to be hard for them to catch the ball. And so you start thinking, all right, who's got the spry sort of folks? Maybe not running, I don't know, maybe not chunking a tire over the top of the car back over the wall, but, who's out there? So I thought it was an interesting question. What do you think?
I thought it was fun too. I mean, you want to look at whose pit crew does like the really fast stops, like consistently really fast. And one of the crews I thought about was the 11 car, but then they're probably going to get a penalty for something,
right?
So then I started thinking about the Hendrick cars.
I've already got mine in mind.
They have that combine thing they do. Everybody used to be a running back for Clemson over there or something. So I think I'm going to have to go with. You know what? I still think Gibbs has the crew thing figured out the best, but the one that seems to make the least amount of mistakes is the one that works for Carl's team. So I'm going to go with Carl's pit crew to win the dodgeball tournament.
So in the final, it's going to be Carl's pit crew versus. I'm thinking of somebody who's just been consistency throughout the whole thing. We're talking Martin Truex Jr.'s team.
Oh, that's good. And they're probably like combined out of the same shop. Mm-hmm. So basically, I guess, at the end of the dodgeball tournament, somebody's going to win some kind of weird trophy and get like $11. And then I guess we just have to fist fight to figure out second place or something. We're not going to get to participate.
Somebody owes us money there.
Like, are we like managers of the team? Or what
why not? Yeah.
Okay.
We get to throw the wrenches.
Yes.
That's how it works out.
Like you're Rip Torn and I'm Rip Torn Jr. Is that how it works?
Yep. We're just. I don't even care. I just want to throw wrenches.
Patches O'Houlihan up in this mother.
Before we get too crazy, let's start closing it out, dude. It's time for the jelly bean.
Do we have any left?
Close out. We have a few. All right. Oh yeah, we're good. There's like half a can of jelly beans here.
Oh sweet.
We're good.
Last time I had too many. I think you got.
This time I had too many. Eating these beer jelly beans. Hey, y'all, we say it every week. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to this and you do not have a PTM podcast sticker,
you gotta get your damn sticker.
Then you gotta get a PTM podcast sticker.
It's right here.
Yep, it's free. All you gotta do is send us your address, DM us that address, slide into the DMs with us.
Slide into those DMs.
And send us your address, we'll send you one. No postage necessary, no blah, blah. I don't know. One day I'll get good enough to be able to, rattle off all that stuff.
Right.
That they said. No purchase required. No purchase necessary. Blah, 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 blah.
No purchase required.
Y'all know where to follow us. It's at PETM Podcast, and if you just go online, just search that PETM Podcast. You're gonna find it.
Search PETM Racing Podcast in your Google search bar. You're gonna find basically everything.
Yep, we're on the iTunes, we're on the Googles, we're on the who knows what's, we're on the
Podcast, Podbean, YouTube,
Party, everything. YouTube is up. Yep,
we're on. What's the? Never mind.
It don't matter. All right.
FarmersOnly.com. We're there.
Why not? We'll talk to y'all after next week. We're going to Homestead after that. Woo! Y'all have a good one.
Rattlesnake.
Peace out.
Man, thumbs up. Holy cow.